This episode of Recording Studio Rockstars is brought to you by Atom Audio, Isotope, Native Instruments, Lewitt, and Grace Design. You're hearing my voice right now on the new Lewitt Ray microphone with Aura, Auto Gain, and EQ mode through the Grace Design M201 Mark II mic pre, mixed through Isotope, Voice Enhancement Assistant, RX, Ozone, Neutron, and Nectar on Atom Audio monitors. Please check out our awesome sponsors using the links in the show notes. It's a great way to help support this show. Now get ready to rock.
It's advice that I actually took, but I would give to anybody else as persistence, because everybody I know that stayed in the game eventually made a good living out of it. And the people that didn't, obviously they're working, doing something else and lamenting it. A lot of my students are people that have left the music business and are now coming back later in life saying, I wish I would have finished what I started.
Welcome to Recording Studio Rockstars. I'm Lid Shaw, and this is the podcast created to help you become a rock star of the recording studio. No matter what style of music you make, Native Instruments gives your studio all the instruments you need. From drums, loops, and beats to the coolest synthesizers, realistic strings, guitar amps, and futuristic synth pads. I love to record real bands in my studio, but then I mix it up with cool sounds from Contact, Massive X, Super 8, Battery, Guitar Rig, and Hybrid keys, for example, to make my music way more exciting and interesting. Use the coupon code ROCK10 for 10% off, or download the free gifts waiting for you, like the awesome new Jacob Collier Audience Choir or Complete Start, featuring 2,000 sounds and 6 gigs of free samples at nativeinstruments.com. Are you recording your own music or other people's music in your studio, but you're having trouble figuring out how to get your mixes to sound great? Do they sound kind of weak or distant or lack punch and clarity? Well, I've got a gift to help you take your mixes from sounding like basement demos to sounding much closer to professional mixes. And it's my free course called Mix Master Bundle. This course will show you how to get pro-sounding mixes from your home studio with free and stock plugins in Pro Tools. And the best part is that these mixing techniques work for you in any DAW, whether you're on Logic, Cubase, Studio One, Reaper, anything you can think of. If you're ready now to make your best record ever, then go to mixmasterbundle.com to get started for free now, and you can find the clickable link in the show notes of this episode. Hey Rockstars, it's your host Lid Shaw, and welcome back to Recording Studio Rockstars, bringing you into the studio to learn from recording professionals so that you can make your best record ever and be a rock star of the studio yourself. My guest today is Bobby Owsinski, a producer, engineer, and one of the best-selling authors in the music industry with 24 books that are now staples in audio recording, music, and music business programs in colleges around the world, including the Mix Engineer's Handbook, Social Media Promotion for Musician, and now the Musician's AI Handbook. He's also a contributor to Forbes as a category expert on the new music business. His long-running production and music industry blogs have won numerous industry awards. He's appeared on CNN and ABC News as a music branding and audio expert. Bobby's highly rated Inner Circle podcast, which is another great one you should be listening to, is now in its 10th year with more than 500 episodes that feature mover and shaker guests from all parts of the music industry. He's also recently produced and mixed albums that appeared on number 2 on the Billboard Blues Charts and number 5 on the Apple Music Rock Chart. Bobby's been a guest on the podcast before for episode RSR10 and RSR395, and he's back today to share with us how AI can help us create, complete, publish, and promote our music from all the cool stuff he's learned while writing the Musician's AI Handbook. So, Rockstars, if you're anything like me, you love having a studio, you love all the technology of learning how to record well and mix well and working with other artists. But right in your heart, at your core, you're still a musician that loves making music yourself and probably wants to put some more music out. So there's a lot of cool stuff I think we can learn from Bobby and from the Musician's AI Handbook. So please welcome back Bobby Owsinski to Recording Studio Rockstars. Bobby, my friend, are you ready to rock yet again?
Let's do it, Lidge.
Great to have you back, dude. How's things for you recently?
Busy, but I'm sure it's the same for you.
It is indeed. For me, it's, a combination of making records in the studio, running the podcast. In fact, I just got back from Fame Studios down in Muscle Shoals, Alabama. But I know that you are also busy because of writing books, teaching. You've got all these great programs to teach people and help people do better mixes and create better music. And sort of what I appreciate about you is it's all aspects of the music biz. It's like the creators, the songwriters, the mixers, the promotion, all that stuff.
Yeah, there's a reason for that. And it's I get bored easily. So
you get bored easily.
Yeah,
nice.
yeah. All right. So, okay, well, let's look at this today.
Yeah. So tell us about your new book, man. Did it start just sort of out of a fascination with this new topic?
It's interesting because I was interested in learning about AI, and the more I get into, the more I found I liked it, and I liked all aspects of it. And then I began to understand that there's a lot of people that are super afraid that it's going to affect them in the wrong way. And hopefully I will dissuade you of that today. But that said, it's also, I went down the rabbit hole. I really enjoyed it. I took classes from MIT, from Meta Academy, from IBM on machine learning and deep learning. I got, that into it that I really wanted to find out how it works. And I came away, especially after I tried well over 200 music apps, AI music apps, thinking that music AI is pretty much behind, let's say, commercial AI. It's not what you think. So before I expound on that, let me answer your questions.
Well, you talked about people having a fear that something bad is going to happen from this. And now we're not talking about like big evil robots destroying the world kind of stuff, I don't think. But it does harken back to, memories of the fear of drum machines or even the fear of MIDI. And I know that you've been making records for a while, so you've seen a lot of different chapters of music and technology. Do you remember some of that stuff? And is that a fair, analogy to make?
Yeah, it is. And I can tell you, I remember the beginning of digital and going to an AES show, and there was a doctor there that was presenting a scientific paper on how digital audio was bad for you and would actually make you sick. So, we've gone through this before where people are super paranoid, and you can always dig up statistics to support your theory, whatever it is. Obviously, that wasn't well-founded, but...
Do you know that 75% of statistics are entirely made up?
I didn't know that, but I'm not surprised. Yeah.
All right. See if you picked up on that one, Rock.
Yeah, I did. Yeah, right.
Okay. So so that's amazing. Yeah. Hearing the idea that it's bad for you. We see that all the time in technology, the fear of it. And I think some caution with technology is probably wise, or some caution of new ideas, just because not all new ideas are good ones. But being afraid of the stuff is just sort of silly. And I think it's maybe you discovered that having that perspective is just missing out on an opportunity rather than taking advantage of a new tool.
Well, that's definitely the case. Before I embarked on the book, I created a survey and sent it out to my list, which is quite large. And I asked them about this. And there were two main topics that came back about AI, fears, I should say. One was the fear that it was going to take away their creativity. And the second one was that it was moving so fast that they could never get their arms around it, so they're just not going to get involved. Neither of those are true. Yes, AI is moving very, very quickly. What we hear about in terms of the clickbait headlines all the time, we're hearing about on a research level how quickly it's moving. But on a practical level, like I said before, AI, especially on the audio end of things, is fairly, it's not nearly as sophisticated as many other aspects of AI, especially when it comes to like plugins. For instance, there's only a few developers that make AI EQs, limiters, compressors. There's not many. There's 3, 4 really. And that's mostly because it costs a lot of money to develop AI, and it costs a lot of money to train and time to train. So most manufacturers, most software developers they don't have the money to be able to do it.
Do you remember the birth of Pandora? And how Pandora, the radio player, and how the discussion was around how they were spending all this time and energy getting people to label songs and like identifying and tagging things. It was all this. It's sort of what you described. It was this concept of training something so that it could suggest.
That is machine learning. So what happens is that there's a distinction here, and let me just give you a very simple primer on this. Artificial intelligence is just a subset of computer science. But a subset of artificial intelligence is machine learning. So machine learning requires, most of it anyway, it gets more sophisticated as it goes along, but most of it requires that you actually tag things. So if you have pictures of dogs and cats, it really does require somebody to say, this is a dog, cat, cat. So that's what was happening with Pandora. They were labeling it. And it takes a human to do that. The next step, though, in the evolution is to use a neural network. And a neural network is based upon the neurons in our brain. And that becomes very sophisticated to the point where now it can learn on its own to some degree, and you don't have to worry about the labeling so much, and it learns from its mistakes. If we go to the final layer of this, it's called deep learning. And the only difference between deep learning and a standard neural network is the fact that there's a lot of layers involved. So if you have 3 layers, it's a neural network. If you have more than 3, it becomes deep learning. And deep learning becomes very sophisticated, where it can work on multiple problems at the same time. And it can also learn from its mistakes, and it can learn without you having to label. So,
it reminds me of the show Silicon Valley, Hot Dog, Not Hot Dog, if any of you watch that one.
Yeah.
So if I say that back to you again, you say the first step is sort of humans tagging things. And I've actually heard people say that the whole CAPTCHA thing that happens with when you're signing in Google, and you have to say you identify pictures of stairs and cars and motorcycles and stuff, that they're actually training it's actually image training in action through that process as well, to make sure, and also simultaneously, ruling out that you're not a robot, you're a person signing in. So people doing stuff, and then the next level is the neural network, which I think, right, which is the if you have You said something about 3 layers. Is that right?
Yeah, there's an input layer, there's an output layer, and in between is what they call the hidden layer. And the hidden layer has, the basis of all the neurons. And what'll happen then is it's smarter. That's the best way I can put it. And when you get more of these layers, hidden layers, then it's smarter still because they all interact with one another. All the neurons interact with one another. So if you have a layer that has, 4,000 neurons, and then you put another one, 4,000 neurons, they're interacting, with each other all the way through.
Wow.
So that it becomes very sophisticated very quickly.
Now, and then after that, the next level is the deep learning, which is like
that's deep learning. When you have more layers, yeah.
Okay, I got you. Okay, great. So this sounds just let's preface this by saying, Rockstars, this sounds pretty deep, techie stuff. So don't be scared off just yet, because we're going to get into the very usable aspect of how this stuff can help you with your music creation and all that. But let me ask. Go ahead.
Let me just say one thing first. You're using this already. If you have a phone and you use it to use your face to open it, facial recognition, that's artificial intelligence. If modern day maps, modern day navigation in your car, that's all artificial intelligence. Siri, for instance, on an Apple device, all those things are AI. You've been using it for a while, whether you know it or not. So that's why then usually when people realize that, they go, oh, okay, well, I don't feel as threatened now.
Yeah, right. When you get the wireless speaker for your kitchen and you just tell it what music to play next, it's all that stuff in action. Now, what about as you've been learning this stuff, do you think of yourself as somebody who just naturally had a real inclination for the deeper technical aspects of stuff? Or do you think that, is just asking about you, Bobby, are you somebody who was always very techie and therefore really could dive deep into this stuff?
Yes, but the beauty of AI is it doesn't require any of that. I mean, I just, told you the dichotomy of the upper layer of how this all works.
Yeah.
But the fact of the matter is you don't have to know any of it. The AI's primary job is to make things easy for us. And when it comes to audio, it really does, providing you use it in the correct way. And that's where people generally fall down. They don't use it, or they use it incorrectly. And as a result, they don't get the results they want. But if you use it, it will give you some pretty good results. And again, it's one of these things where you don't have to think about it. It just works.
Okay. Well, let's set a little context too, just in case the rock stars are sort of trying to picture you in some mad science lab. Can you describe to us a little bit, just give us an overview of your home studio? Maybe that helps us understand where our similarities are to the kind of environment that you're testing this stuff out in as well.
It's very unsophisticated as studios go. I'm in probably the worst type of room you could have. It's almost a cube. It's almost square. And that's the worst type of room you can possibly have. But I have all sorts of acoustic absorption in here. So it actually sounds really good. Most sophisticated thing, perhaps, are the speakers. They're Amphions. They're passive, with an Amphion passive, an Amphion amplifier, a Mac Studio. I guess it's a Pro Max, and a couple of monitors, and an external drive bay with a bunch of SSD drives, and that's kind of it. And as far as interface, it's just a UAD twin.
Right on. Hey, you're talking to us in the good old Shure SM7B right now too.
Yeah, and the only other thing that's maybe more sophisticated, that I've taken the signal chain up a notch. I have the mic is feeding into an R&D, Rupert Neve Designs Sheffield channel, which does make it sound really good.
Awesome.
So, but other than that, no, nothing more sophisticated. I have loads of microphones and loads of high-end microphones, and I don't know, this works good.
Right on. Well, that sounds like a pretty familiar territory for most of us. So we're looking forward to hearing about how we can start using this new tech. I mean, I've got ways of asking questions for you, but maybe they're probably the same questions you're going to answer anyway. I mean, I think a general question would be, how can AI and the AI Handbook help me as a musician, or help us as a musician, go from song idea to recording to mix, master, and then a successful release, and maybe even making an income from our music? But that's probably a lot to ask of one podcast episode. But maybe is that a fair question for AI?
Yeah, it really is, because it does cover all those aspects, and the book does cover that. Musician's AI Handbook covers all of that, from composition. And yes, AI will come up with some songs and some melodies. It will do all that. But I believe you should use it, except in a couple of applications. You should use it for ideas that you never would have thought of. It's really good at that. So it will give you ideas for chord changes. It will give you ideas for melodies. It will give you ideas for orchestration that you never would have thought of. So that's composition. We can get into production, and production goes a little bit further with that. Production will take us to, for instance, song analysis. There's a number of song analyzer tools that will do everything from just simple stuff like find a BPM, find a key, which if you're a DJ, that's important. If you're a musician, you don't care, to tell me the genre of this song. And most artists, most songwriters don't really know the genres that they should be using. So, that's a good aspect right there. Then we get into the audio aspect. And there's audio tools, AI audio tools for, like I say, all the processing you can think of: equalization, limiting, compression, track separation. It's especially good at track separation. Noise reduction. It's excellent at noise reduction. Then we get into mixing and mastering. It's really good at mastering. It's not good at mixing. As a matter of fact, it could barely do it. So there's no fear for mixers right now, because it's not even in the ballpark.
Right on. It forgot to read your mix engineer's handbook, man. That's the problem.
Right. I'm afraid somebody might feed it into it. Anyway, then we get into promotion of your music. There's really good AI tools for graphics. There's great AI tools for videos, to do videos that are fairly inexpensive and look really good. And this includes just normal music videos and also lyric videos. And then we get into how do you promote your music? Well, with any of the chatbots you can use, and I suggest you use at least two, you be able to find out things like, what's the best merch that I should buy? What has the most margin? How should I plan my record release party? I have a budget of $500. How should I spend it? What should I do for this release, this upcoming release? Give me a plan, a release plan. I'm planning a tour. Give me the best tour route. I mean, just some things off the top of my head. And these are all easy things, and they don't cost you a lot of money. That's the whole thing. None of these tools cost a lot of money, generally speaking.
In 2024, Adam Audio celebrates 25 years of designing industry-leading monitors in Berlin, unveiling the Arctic White A4V and A7V series, available for a limited time. With the XART ribbon tweeter design, customizable speaker voicings, and SonarWorks integration for room correction, these monitors deliver professional-grade sound perfect for Grammy-winning producers and home studios. Make your studio cooler than cool with the Arctic White series and get the Adam Audio A4V and A7V with an extended 5-year warranty at adamaudio.com. That's pretty exciting. Now, if we think about this as a list of, 20 different tools, and I don't want to get too ahead of myself, but if each of them doesn't cost a lot of money, it's sort of like plugins. Eventually, you've got tons of them, and it starts to add up a little bit. Are many of these things stuff that we can dabble in without having to invest much in it to begin with?
Almost all of them have a trial.
Okay, great.
And a lot of them work on, instead of saying, well, it's $19 a month or whatever, there's usually a subscription of some type, and there's multi levels of subscription. Mm-hmm. But a lot of them work on a token level. So it's basically like, okay, for this video, if you want it at this resolution, it will cost you 7 tokens. And each token is $5.
It's just like going back to the arcade, dude.
Yeah, same thing. Yeah, there you go. There you go. So the one thing that the book does, and I spend a lot of time on this, AI copyright touches on that. And I had meetings with some of the most intelligent, smartest, experienced intellectual property attorneys in the world just to vet this. Matter of fact, I had a super high-ranking attorney from, well, best I not say because he's still there, but he vetted the chapter. And it's really interesting as well because there's a lot of things in copyright that has to do with AI that hasn't been worked out yet. And we're still, working these things out gradually.
Right on. Well, I do have a few questions from the rock stars in our Facebook group. So is it all right with you if I just jump right into a couple of those? Because might as well get them in before they all get covered anyway. Now we'll double down on it. All right. So this first one comes in from Steve Pond, and Steve says, well, his has got a few things in there. So let me see how I want to phrase this. Let me just put it this way. He asks a few questions, and then he concludes with, finally, I asked AI this: will AI-generated music ruin music as an expressionist medium? And it got a long reply. And then he says, my take at the end, he says, the damn thing knows we're onto it and is telling us what we want to hear while silently plotting our downfall.
Yeah.
Looking forward to the episode. I just thought that was funny.
Okay. Let me tell you, here's the big difference. AI is good at a lot of things. It's not good at nuances. Humans are really good at nuance. So
we invented the word.
There you go. That's the difference. So what makes somebody great is the nuances that they use. Somebody that's just learning how to play guitar, for instance, they're on fundamentals. That's where AI is. AI is on fundamentals. But as you start to cop licks, now you're catching Stevie Ray Vaughan licks and Eric Clapton licks and things like that. There are nuances, the vibrato, the bends, things like that. So just to give you an example, humans are good at that. AI is not. The best way it was explained to me, and I explained to everybody else, if you are in school and you have a term paper to write, and if you just turn in a blank paper, you get an F. If you ask AI to write it, let's say, just on social networks, you'll get probably a C, maybe a B minus. If you take that information it gave you and then you add your own to it, then you're coming into A territory. So it needs you to
Now,
really.
what if you're John Cage and it's one level up and you turn in the blank piece of paper? Do you get an A double plus?
Yeah, there you go. Right. There are exceptions to every rule, right?
All right. So that's cool to hear. Yeah. So Steve asks more questions. He says, is an AI generated chord sequence as valid as a human written one?
It depends what you make of it. You're the one that puts it into the song.
Yeah.
How do you do it? It's up to you.
How many chord sequences are there? Has anybody ever calculated that?
Yes, as a matter of fact, there's an attorney who's really smart, and he's an AI attorney too, an intellectual property attorney. Damian Reel is his name. And he and a programmer friend copyrighted. Well, what they did is they generated every chord sequence and every melody possible.
Wow.
And they copyrighted them all. And the reason why, they didn't want to make money, they wanted to put it in the public domain, which they did. So we wouldn't have these ridiculous copyright lawsuits that we have.
So they did every chord sequence, and what was the second?
Melody.
So I was under the impression that a chord sequence was not copyrightable.
It's not.
But melody is.
It is. That's right. So what they did, though, they made sure it was all in the public domain. So what'll happen, they put it in the public domain. They're trying to make this so we don't have these stupid copyright lawsuits. That being said, it hasn't gotten to the point where the Copyright Office has said, yeah, this is valid or not. So we're still waiting for a ruling on that.
I can't even fathom the number of melodies they must have had to generate.
He did mention the number, and I don't recall what it is, but it was staggering.
It's definitely 10 to the something,
That being said, and that's where the copyright problems all come in. In Western music, there are only so many that that our ear finds appropriate. The Western ear finds appropriate. There's only so many, and so many chord changes. There are many chord changes that we just don't find work. So that's why most songs pretty much sound the same.
I need to stop using those wrong chords. That's my problem. Okay.
Yeah, those major seconds, right? Yeah.
Major seconds they're pretty cool. They work. What am I thinking of? I don't know. I can't think of a song that fast.
Yeah, right.
Well, major seconds. So Tired of Waiting by the Kinks. Isn't that major seconds? Down, 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 down. Somebody jump in, rock stars.
That's a minor third. It's going to.
Is it? All right. Oh, dang it.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's move on to the next thing. I'll turn to AI to help me sort that out later.
Yeah. Yeah. Right.
Do you have more to say on the chord issue, or shall I jump to the next question?
Well, one thing that, let's just stay in copyright for a second. The Copyright Board has ruled that a 100% AI-driven, AI-generated melody, song, whatever it is, art piece cannot be copyrighted.
Oh, interesting.
It needs a human. Now, they didn't say how much of the human, but it needs a human.
Okay, so I will jump ahead to this question from Brian Murphy, which is still on the copyright issue. He says, what about legal matters? Like if the AI writes a song or passage too similar to a copywritten song, how can a musician protect themselves? And can BMI, ASCAP, and others track such infringements?
As far as I know, they can't track it until you publish it. So you'd have to publish it. Okay. Supposedly there's guardrails on most of the melody and song generator AIs. That if you say, write a song like Elton John, it will say, sorry, I can't do that. Because if it does, then what'll happen, it will, you'll have that problem.
You're like, you're
So
no better, AI, you're no better than my buddy who I asked to write the song too. He said the same damn thing.
now, what could happen though is that there's something called ethical AI, and that uses training materials that have been licensed. So conceivably, Boomy or Loudly or one of those, Ava could go to Elton John and say, "We will give you 50 million bucks plus percentage." And probably Elton's people would say, "Yeah, okay, that'll
I
work."
like money.
Yeah, I mean, that is happening in certain situations for virtual vocalists, for instance, which are very
Yeah.
cool. Do
Yeah.
work.
So then an artist, somebody who feels like I own my own voice. I mean, like hopefully, Bobby, you're the only one who owns the voice of Bobby Owsinski. Does that mean that there is hope that you will have outlets to put your voice where you can, get something in return if it gets used, as opposed to anybody just using your voice in any way?
Sure, there's dozens of sites that you can do that. A lot of them are just industrial, so you just put a voice sample up, and then they'll use it for voiceovers and things like that. But there are virtual singers, and there's a number of sites that will have virtual singers of all different types that they've licensed those voices.
That's great. That's great to hear. I mean, I know that's been a concern sometimes for people. So it's cool to hear that rather than being a threat, it could be a new opportunity.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's see. Here's another one let me go to this one from Ian Shepard. So Ian asks, does Bobby think AI will reach the point where it can understand and react to the emotion in music?
Not that I've seen so far. And even on the most intelligent level, it doesn't work that way.
That gets
AI,
into the territory of nuance, I would guess.
well, yes, but it doesn't work that way. At its best right now, just think of a very sophisticated calculator. And the easiest way to think of it is, if you have ChatGPT or something like that, all it's doing is if you say, write me a song like Bob Dylan. And what it will do is it will put together a sequence of words that, again, using mathematics, really, well, if the first word is this, the second one might be this, and the third one might be this. So then if you ask it to regenerate, it will come up with a whole new sequence, but it's like, well, okay, the second word again could be this. We used this one before, we use a different one. And so it's a big calculator, really. And when you think about it like that, it becomes a little on the soulless side, and therefore, no, it's not reacting, to love or any emotion or anything like that.
Well, it's interesting to even, not to go too deep down that topic, but to think about emotion. When I was just thinking about it, I thought it occurred to me that well-composed music, the right music and the right film sequence can certainly generate a lot of tears in the room or a lot of laughs, smiles. But emotion is ultimately like we respond to, a song has brought tears to me at times when it probably had no intention of doing that. And it's more of a reflection of my own personal, experience, like maybe some breakup, or I remember personally for me, hearing Cat Stevens will bring tears to my eyes because it reminds me of when my mother died, So there can be very personal aspects, and I can't imagine how AI is going to measure that. Although it's possible that in the future it gets to know you personally, individually so well that it begins to come up to, track things that, again, the calculator can figure out.
Well, that's happening already. And actually, one of the very first AIs that goes back to the late 50s called Eliza was, and this is, again, way, way, way back. Eliza was a therapist. And
wow.
now, I mean, we have that now. There's AI therapy, but there's also a number of sites. The biggest one right now, and it's especially big with if you're in your 20s, it's Character AI, character.ai. And Character AI has a number of built-in characters that you can talk to. For instance, they have an Elon Musk character. They have a mostly historical figures if you want to talk to them. But there's also a therapist, or you can make your own. So, and then there's Replica, which is actually an app that you can put on your phone. And Replica, you make your own AI, your AI friend, AI lover, whatever it is that reacts to you. And I've read on this that the founder, after a couple of years, the Replica people were kind of disturbed what was happening, because there were people that really began to think of their Replica as a girlfriend, boyfriend, wife, husband. And that's what they thought. And it could be dangerous. So, yeah. But again,
why are they more likely to break up with you or cheat on you?
Yeah, right.
Well, you think of the movies, gosh, what was it? Ex Machina. Think of even the new Blade Runner film. I think, wasn't that his girlfriend?
Yeah.
Who was digital. So it's fascinating. But more presently, back to just sort of making music with this stuff too. Another question from Steve Pond was, AI can generate perfectly beautiful images, but are they art or are they just visual clutter? And does the same apply to music?
Well, there's been I guess the best way to put it is kind of a changing of the way everybody thinks about it. AI art. There was some AI generated art that had won some art contests. And then they said that when it was found out, it was, well, you're disqualified. But then the AI artist came back and said, yes, but you don't realize what it took in order for me to get this, because it took days and days of prompts and reworking the prompts in order to come up with something like that, which is just as valid. So, and with music, it's somewhat the same. I think we've all heard of the deep fakes.
Mm-hmm. Like the idea of a false imitation of somebody presenting something as real, but when it's actually a false version of it.
Well, there's John Lennon, there was Drake, there's The Weeknd, there was Ariana Grande, there was, all sorts of deep fakes, which sounded just like them. And what everybody thought was, oh, I can go to one of these AI generators, song generators. Again, there are a number of them: AIVA, Loudly, Boomy are the big ones. And I can just put in, make me a Drake song, and it will come out and it'll sound just like Drake, and it'll be great. And I can upload it. But that's not what happens. All of these deep fakes are not like that. They actually take a lot of work, and they're programmed up just like any song is. So in other words, it's somebody that's slaving over their samples, their virtual instruments, they're playing, they're making this bed track, and then they're taking the vocal and they're using one of these vocal cloners to clone any of those people and put it on top. That's what those deep fakes are. So it's not what you think. There's a lot more going into it. When you go, and again, I've played a lot with, these generators, song generators. And there's lots of limitations. They can do some things you go, wow, that sounds really good, especially on the orchestral side. But they're very limited in the amount of time. They usually can only do one motif. So if they'll give you a verse, and the chorus will be almost the same at different instruments in and out. I mean, there's a lot of modern music that's like that too. They never think of things like a bridge intro, outro. So there's the downside, that they can get you a little bit that's really good and maybe impressive. And then it still might take you 20 tries, 30 tries, 50 tries to get it to where you want. There's been some data bots these people make custom AI music generators for artists and musicians that want to duplicate themselves. And they claim that less than 10% of AI generated music is usable.
Hey, rock stars. Yeah, you. I've got a secret to tell you. Want to know how I get a consistent sound mixing over 1,000 hours of recording studio rock stars? Well, my secret is using iZotope, RX, Ozone, Neutron, Voice Enhancement Assistant, and Nectar to make every episode of this podcast sound great. Right now, you're hearing RX Breath Control, D-Click, D-Clip, DS, D-Plosive, Voice D-Noise, Ozone Multiband Compression, Neutron EQ, VEA, and Limiting, all from iZotope. Use the secret code ROCK10 to get 10% off or pick up the new Trash Light along with many of the other free cool plugins over at iZotope.com. Do you think with the art contest, do you think those judges would have accepted submissions from Bob Ross and Thomas Kincaid, or they would have turned them away as well?
Yeah, well, good question.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think about the methodical process of creating even as a human. I mean, it's part of what we do as well, but still there's that that element that seems to make it work. And it's funny to hear you talking about this idea that like, oh, now you can just go crank out, go put stuff into an AI thing and it's going to just kick out a hit song. It really, same thing could be said for those of us who might have ever thought, oh, I can just build a studio and everything will sound great.
Yep. Yeah, it's a good analogy. People think that there are things that are easy, and usually nothing is that easy that you can, just do it in a flash. So, we're going through this where there's a big deception that happens, and it's mostly because, and I always caution people about this, don't believe the hype. There's a lot of clickbait, especially in the headlines. Many people just read the headlines and think, well, that's what's happening now. And in fact, if you read the article, some of it might not even pertain to what the headline is. The headline's just trying to get you to click. So, again, don't, and this probably everything in the world is like this now. So don't just read headlines, go a little bit deeper for the real message.
Let me jump to this question. This one just popped into my head. What for you, Bobby, has been the most remarkable moment where you used AI and you were able to create something that you were really amazed by?
The initial survey that I talked about, that I sent out to my follower list, that was done mostly by AI.
Awesome.
And what I did is I described my avatar meaning the average follower, mm-hmm. and what I was trying to get out of it. And prompt engineering is a real thing, and you have to do that the right way. Yeah. But it gave me a pretty good survey. Now I tweaked it for sure, but it was pretty good. So
where else we do prompt engineering is in production, isn't it? I mean, yeah. In a way, prompt engineering is the art of communicating with a group of people and musicians in a studio setting or in a composition and rehearsal room, and trying to make suggestions that create results that that come from those individuals as a collective.
Yeah. The other place I used it that it worked really well is writing my book, but not for what you think. I did try and said, I write, chapter 2 about copyright, and it was crap. It was just awful. So I did it myself and then went back and said, okay, check this for grammar and any mistakes. And if something can be made clearer, then please do that. And some of it was good and some of it wasn't, but all of the editorial mistakes that you might have, the grammars and the grammar things and all, but fixed all those.
Yeah.
So that was good.
Yeah, it's funny. I mean, we've had spell check for ages, and most of us get pissed off at it.
Yeah.
When it switches out the words, or when you hit send on a text and you're like, oh my God, I can't believe I just sent that message to my girlfriend. You know, that's not at all what I said. Grammarly is one that I've, had for a long time, and these are really all AI tools. And I think it's a reminder that sometimes just the fact that it's become a hot topic of headlines makes us think it's all brand new, but it's what it is. It's the same thing in music as when people say like every overnight sensation was 10 years in the making.
Yeah. Right.
All right. So here's another one from Steve. He says, and as AI, I love the fact that people's questions generally, like, they want to ask questions that are sort of philosophical and asked you, Bobby, to predict the future, but so be it, So he says, is AI an artistic distillation of human endeavor, or is it a collage of nothing?
It's a tool. You use it as you would any other tool. It's as simple as that. You're an artist. It requires you to be there. It doesn't create without you. It's just your tool in any of these applications.
Awesome. All right, go ahead.
I want to go one other place here, because we've been talking about a lot of things, and audio is what your listeners really want here. So
yeah,
let me just describe how it could be useful with some tools by Sonable, Isotope, Focusrite. Usually what will happen is, let's say we want to EQ something. You have a guitar. Okay, you put this AI EQ on, and then all you have to do, you hit a learn button, and you play 8 seconds of it. And that's it. And it spits out your settings. And it does this on the basis of it's learned from a long, long list of good sounding electric guitars or acoustic guitars, whatever it might be. So it knows what that's supposed to be. The same thing happens with limiting, with compression, any of those things. It's very simple. So if you're just starting or if you want to do something quickly, it does a great job. Here's the downside. And any real mixer knows this. If you solo a mix element up and you make it sound great on its own, then put it into the track, it usually won't work. It won't fit. It's how something sounds in the track that's really important. AI has not figured this out yet. So
nuance.
Yes. But on the other hand, if you want to go through, if you're just starting and this confuses you, it will do a gangbuster job of getting you in the ballpark.
I just love the fact that you just used the word gangbuster. I like to give shout outs every time somebody uses a new phrase on the podcast.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah. So let me rewind a little bit, and let me help clarify by saying some things back. You said you put in something that you're working on, like your acoustic guitar track, and you say learn. But you also said AI learns what the other acoustic guitars are. So the first learn is you're asking it to learn what your acoustic is so that it knows, well, here's what your acoustic sounds like now, right? And then the other moment you said the word learn means prior to this moment, the AI tool like Isotope, Ozone, or Neutron, for example, has gone out and learned examples of lots of other great sounding acoustic guitars and created benchmarks to say, your guitar is, this much different from the benchmark of these, any one of these other guitars, or an amalgam of an average of all the guitars that sound great. That actually even saying that out loud is a very interesting way to think of it. It's like you are, in a way, you're kind of measuring yourself against an average of the greats.
Yeah. Well, it's trained on all these other guitars. See, this is where the training comes in.
Yeah.
The AI it doesn't just do this out of thin air. It has to be trained.
Yeah.
So if the training is bad, let's just say it's trained on just a bunch of electric guitars that don't particularly sound good and they're just random, then, what it's going to give you isn't going to be that great. But we have to hope that the training is at a high level.
Yeah.
So
if you have bad trainers, then everybody gets eaten by the dinosaurs at Jurassic Park.
Yeah, there you go.
Okay, cool. So give us a little bit more of an overview of what we find in the Musician's AI Handbook. And we're going to continue to dive in deep, but I want to keep making sure that we're, because we keep going off. It's so easy to talk about this stuff and go off into our heads, which is wonderful. That's the nuance that makes us human. But give us a little bit of an outline of like, what do we find in the Musician's AI Handbook?
Well, first it covers some AI basics, and we talked about this earlier. And the reason why is to just give you an idea of what we've been using it for already, what it really is, and it's kind of like pulling the curtain back. So it's less. You find out how it works and how it works with music, especially, and then you're less afraid of it. Then we get into copyright, and I talk about just normal copyright first of all. The fact that there are 3 copyrights for every song, and which a lot of people forget about, and how that translates to something that's AI generated, and where the gray areas are that haven't been decided yet. Then we get into AI composition, and AI composition, again, there are numerous AIs out there that will create portions of a song. Loudly, boomy are the commercial ones, the consumer ones. AIVA is a little more sophisticated, and it actually comes up with some really good stuff. There's tons of them, and how they work and what their limitations are. Then we get into AI production. So AI production tools are helping you come up with new ideas for melodies, for chord changes, for things like arrangements, although it's not particularly great, but it will give you some ideas. Then we go into AI audio, like we just talked about, all the different AI processors, but also AI separation tools. So if you already have a track and now 10 years later you decide you want that vocal to be louder, yes, you can do it. There are plenty of tools and can do that well. Then noise reduction. AI noise reduction tools are awesome, and they're really inexpensive. Then we get into mixing and mastering. Like I say, mixing isn't all that good these days. The AI tools are very unsophisticated. So that's not something that probably will want to do. But the AI mastering is really good. This includes AI mastering plugins, AI online mastering. There are more and more coming online every day, and they're getting better. Then we get into the promotion of your music, which would be AI graphics. The various AI graphic tools, how to use them to come up with what you want, and also what the limitations are, because there are severe limitations sometimes. And if you know what to look for, you can see immediately. Then AI video tools to do your own videos, to do your own lyric videos. And again, there are many tools, but you really have to know the way to use them in order to get the most out of them. And every one of these topics I'm talking about, that's what we go through. Here's how to use them. Here's how to get the most out of it. Plus, here are the limitations. So you can either spot this or you know what to expect or not to expect. And then finally, we come down to AI marketing tools, which are actually using just chatbots, ChatGPT, Bing AI, Bard, which is now going to be called Gemini, and Claude, for instance. There's dozens of them. but they all work the same, and they only work as well as your prompt. So there's a whole section on prompt engineering and the best way to do that.
What do songwriters, music producers, DJs, EDM, TV, and film composers all have in common with you and me? We all crave captivating sounds that elevate our music to the next level. That's why Native Instruments is your ultimate creative companion, offering a vast library of sounds for your studio. Whether you're crafting hip-hop beats, indie pop melodies, classic rock anthems, serene meditation tracks, pulsating dance floor hits, or intricate orchestral compositions, Native Instruments' complete bundle has you covered. From drums, loops, and beats to dynamic synths, lifelike strings, and vintage instruments like electric bass, guitars, and keys, the possibilities are endless. Use the coupon code ROCK10 for 10% off, or download the free gifts waiting for you, like the awesome new Jacob Collier Audience Choir and Complete Start featuring 2,000 sounds and 6 gigs of samples over at nativeinstruments.com. In 2024, Atom Audio will celebrate 25 years of researching, developing, and manufacturing industry-leading monitoring solutions in Berlin. To mark this milestone, our friends at Atom Audio are unveiling a very special limited edition series of monitors that will look gorgeous in your studio and sound as awesome as your music. Introducing the Arctic White A4V and A7V series, available for a limited time to pro and home studio owners like yourself. The clean, glossy white finish exudes a decadent feel and will stand out in any studio or in-home audio system. Featuring the XART accelerated ribbon tweeter design and customizable speaker voicings, the Arctic White A4V and A7V have the full specifications of the original design. Plus, with SonarWorks integration for automated room correction, you can fine-tune your monitors to your control room's acoustics. Plus, with SonarWorks integration for automated room correction, you can fine-tune your monitors to your control room's acoustics. Atom Audio's commitment to delivering professional-grade, high-fidelity sound to studios worldwide has made these monitors a perfect fit for Grammy-winning producers in both pro and home studios for a quarter of a century. Now you can bring that beautiful high-fidelity sound to your own productions and make your studio look as amazing as your music. Don't miss out on the new limited edition Arctic White A4V and A7V monitors, available for a short time with an extended 5-year warranty at atomaudio.com. Howdy, Rockstars. We're back now for the second half of the show, aka the jam session, aka I should probably ask AI what to call it from now on. My guest today is Bobby Owsinski, joining us here on Recording Studio. Rockstars, Bobby, you ready to rock? Jam. Sorry, jam, I'm supposed to say. I can't even keep track of my own show. All right, so if it's all right with you, let me jump to the beginning of a process and maybe, in the interest of time, give us just a little bit of an insight into each of these things, like a tool or what it means. So the first part of the question would be accelerating our music creation process. So in the beginning of it, maybe we just need to come up with a song. I think about getting together with friends. Either we're doing stuff by ourselves and maybe we're thinking like, how do I come up with nice ideas for lyrics or an idea? Or, I use a rhyming dictionary to come up with rhymes for lyrics. Or sometimes we get together with our friends and we jam a little bit, or we, bounce ideas off each other. What are some ways that the AI tools can help us in that very iterative beginning process?
Yeah, I think I should probably pull up my AI.
Don't you have AI to do that for you?
I have a whole list of AIs.
Awesome. I think of that as the song sketch, the moment of the song sketch. You're coming up with ideas.
Well, okay, it's fairly easy from the standpoint of lyrics. Lyrics, you can use ChatGPT. It really does a good job. But there are other ones. These lyrics don't exist is one. Oh, almost every chatbot, except like ChatGPT, the big ones don't have this, but some of the smaller ones do, where there'll be a separate section just for song lyrics. So that's something you should look into. But the whole secret is you have to give it context. You can't just say, write me a song. You have to say, write a song about a girl in Louisiana who's longing for her boyfriend and in the Navy that's in wherever, and make sure that it's I want it to be a slow rock ballad with at least 3 verses, 3 choruses, and a bridge.
Wait, that's just Tie a Yellow Ribbon slowed down.
But when you give it context like that and you really give it some direction, then it will come up with something. So then at that point, I mean, if you're hopeless at writing lyrics, some people are, then maybe that's something that you could use. There's no copyright problems, by the way. And the next thing is you've probably written some lyrics already and the concept. You may just be stuck and you need an idea or just even a word sometimes or a phrase. So you go through this and you look at what it wrote, and chances are you're going to come up with something and go, oh, that's great. I wish I would have thought of that. Or I didn't have to. Then, ChatGPT thought of it.
Now, can I interject something? Because rock stars might be thinking this. If I've already written most of lyrics or a batch of lyrics for a song, are people sometimes afraid of pasting in their lyrics to the chatbot to ask it for more ideas because they're afraid that it's going to steal their song or something like that?
No, it won't do that. But that's another way to do it. You could upload your lyrics and then say, one of the most powerful things with the chatbot is to have it assume a character. So you can say, assume that you're a songwriting expert and you're looking at my lyrics. What would you suggest I change? Or you can say, you are my songwriting mentor. What do you read my lyrics and make any suggestions? So you can approach it different ways and they're all valid.
Now, in the same way that you could, check out as a guest versus logging in and it remembers who you are, can you use these chatbots like that where it remembers your last conversation, or you can say, be my buddy Chris again, who I always love to write songs with. Sorry, Chris, I'm not going to replace you with the chatbot just yet.
There's 2 ways to do it. If you're paying the $20 a month for ChatGPT, and most of them are, you pay a subscription, then they do remember everything. But
okay, cool.
Now they also have, I forget what they call it because they all call it something different. But there's a section in the settings where you can just put that in. Imagine you're Chris, imagine you're my songwriting partner, Chris, and blah, 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 blah. So it always resorts to that. It always, starts there first.
Oh, you can have like pre-saved prompts or something.
Yeah.
Like that.
Yes.
Okay.
Words.
All right. And again, apologies. We don't have to get too deep into the weeds on this stuff, but I think this describing it a little bit really helps us just kind of have these ahas as we listen to it and realize that this is, go get the book and I want to read all about this stuff and go try it, Okay. So you can have it help you find lyrical things. Again, in this kind of ChatGPT world, like I literally wrote in, what questions should I ask Bobby Owsinski on my podcast, Recording Studio Rockstars, about his new book, Musician's AI Handbook? My audience own pro and home recording studios and record themselves as well as other bands, but most likely also want to write some songs and want to do more of their own music. And then it spit out, 10 pretty great questions to start with.
Did it know who I was?
Let me see if it said something that implies that it really knew who you were. It didn't say anything about you specifically, so I think it played it safe and then just said, what inspired you to write the Musician's AI Handbook? Now, I could have said, you're right. I could have prompted it with more information about you or copied your bio, or even, I don't know if I could have put a link to your website in there and said, Bobby Owsinski, found at this link, kind of thing.
Yes, you could have. It depends on the version. One of the downsides of ChatGPT, the free version, ChatGPT 3.5, is that its training stops September 2021, and it also doesn't reach out to the internet. But now, when you pay the $20 a month, it will look out at the internet, and also Bing AI and Bard, those look at the internet. So you could have put my name in, and it would have come up with something.
Okay, cool.
That being said, for my AI production course, I did that as an example. I put myself in and I said, find out everything about Bobby Owsinski. And it hallucinated. It came out with some things that were not true. So one of the things it said, for instance, was that I was the chairman of the Vinyl Record Association, which
wow.
I'm a member. But where it got that from was I did have the person on my podcast. So it just
so it conflated those things. Yeah.
It also said that I teach at USC, and I don't do that. I've lectured there a few times, but it probably got that from my bio. So again, there are things that you have to be careful of, because it's not always going to give you the right answer. It will give you get in the ballpark.
Yeah, I've seen that happen. I actually tried to ask it to explain how I could set up routing in Pro Tools to create the, is it the Dan Dugan auto mixer?
Oh, yeah.
And it wasn't even close. It was like, you can do these things. I was like, Pro Tools doesn't do those things. But so that's just a good reminder that we have to, once again, without the human element, you have to vet it and make sure that it's getting the stuff right.
That's a great way to put it. Yeah, vet it.
Okay, cool. So then, and I think another thing to think about in lyric is if you were co-writing with a human and they say something and you're like, oh, that's pretty good. The co-write doesn't end there. You take that and now you bounce it back to them, and maybe they bounce it back to you. And is that something we can do with the AI too? Like we can have a back and forth conversation and keep working on an idea?
Well, that's the best way to use it, actually, because what will happen is you'll get an answer, and the first thing you should do is always regenerate it. There's a regenerate button on all of them, so it'll give you a second version of it or a third. I don't believe in going too much more than 3, because then it just gets different. Doesn't necessarily get better. But at that point, then you can say to yourself, this isn't exactly what I'm looking for. Let me go back and revisit the prompt. So you go back and you change the prompt a little bit, and then try it again, and it remembers where it was from. So you're not starting from the beginning. And you can even say, now, considering what you wrote above, now let's try it like this, or let me add this extra information. You can tell it that, and it will do it. One of the cool things now, I mean, you can talk to it as if it's another person.
That's what I was going to ask you. For somebody like me who just sucks at typing, is it pretty easy to just say what you want to say in the prompt and it'll get it?
Yeah. As a matter of fact, it's very, very good at that. And also, it's really good at spitting it out like that, too. A good prompt engineering trick is to say, explain this to me, this concept, as if I were a 10-year-old or as if I was in high school. And it does a really good job. So, it will understand you, and it will make sure you understand it.
All right, cool. All right, so let's see. So we get some lyrics now. Now, what are some other aspects of song creation where we might find useful ideas for a sketch of an idea?
Well, there are many platforms that you could use. I mean, there's a ton of them. I mentioned before, there's Aeva, there's Boomi, Chordify, Magenta, Usenet. There's a bunch of them that you could use. And again, what you'll do is some allow you to have really sophisticated prompts, and some just say genre of music, tempo, and that's it. And then it will generate something. But if you get more sophisticated and you tell it those things, tempo, the number of sections, especially the genre, the subgenre, you can dive deep into the weeds on a subgenre, and it will write you a song. And you can basically say at that point, regenerate it again. Or most of them will write like 4 different versions. And then you can pick one and you can actually say, okay, yeah, I like it like this, and let's do more of something, make it a little stronger, make the beat heavier, whatever. You can do that and keep on going until it comes up with something good. Now, let's say it does come up with something and you go, boy, I quite like that. I'd like to use that. Well, this is where it gets tricky, because in order to download the audio file, it will say, yeah, fine, I'll give you an MP3, a crappy sounding MP3, unless you pay me $19 a month or whatever the fee might be. And now, guess what? You can have a high resolution version. Although the highest resolution you could ever get so far is 44.116. That's it.
Interesting. Why is that? Why do you think that is?
Oh, I can tell you why. So when you generate just a single picture, it does it once and it's done. When you generate a video, it does it 30 times a second. When you ask it to generate audio, it has to do it 44,100 times a second. There's a lot of horsepower that it needs.
So what you're saying is that is some pretty damn high resolution already.
Yes. And it's a horsepower issue. So far, there's nothing that will work at a higher, and it's a big limitation, that at a higher value than that, higher resolution.
Wait, hold up, Bobby. Now, we're a long ways from 1910, but are you going back and suggesting that we need faster horses again?
Yeah, there we go. Right.
I am super impressed with iZotope Ozone. I've been mastering many of my records recently, and Ozone makes it so easy to get a fantastic sound. The built-in mastering assistant helps by measuring the mix and suggesting all the settings needed for a professionally mastered result based on the genre and EQ curve of your choice. You can even reference a specific song if you want. Using simple yet sophisticated modules like clarity, impact, low-end focus, stabilizer, imager, exciter, and spectral shaping, along with powerful dynamic EQ, compression, and limiting, you simply adjust the settings to your own taste and it sounds incredible. And the magic of master rebalance means that you can reach into your mix at the mastering stage and manipulate the vocal, bass, and drums. Amazing. My bandmates are pretty demanding of my mixes, but now when I send off the masters for approval, the band absolutely loves the way our records sound thanks to iZotope and Ozone. Use the code ROCK10 to get 10% off Ozone or other tools like RX and Voice Enhancement Assistant, or grab any of the cool free plugins like the new Trash Light over at iZotope.com. Okay, cool. So you can generate the music. Now, it makes me think about how songwriting starts with me and my buddies. So, we have this dialogue we like to call the guitar sketches. Like somebody's noodles around on an idea and then somebody else starts hearing the melody and singing some things over it. What are some versions of that you're seeing possible through the AI stuff? And I can keep describing further if that was too.
Yeah, a little bit more.
Well, so like I might play some chords, a little bit of a chord riff, a little bit of a melodic idea, and then, text it to my friend who hears that and it inspires him with a little bit of a melody, and he's got a poem that he's referring to and coming up with some lyrics. and sends it back, or we're in the same room together doing that sort of thing. And you're talking about all these AI tools. Do you see them as ways to take, this chord melody bit from over here? Now you bring it over to this other place, and it takes that as a prompt and starts generating something to go along with that. Are there ways that these tools can interact with each other in some of the same ways that humans do?
Yes, there's one in particular, Scalar 2. And Scalar 2 is very sophisticated. You can really go down a rabbit hole on this. But it's especially good for chord changes and things like that. And it will come up with some that you'll go, how'd you come up with that? That's fantastic. And I like to use it just for that. So instead of going down a rabbit hole and all the other things, it's no, just this, just give me this. So there's an example of one. There's a lot of them that are like that will, that are just specializing in melody or just specializing in chord changes, things like that.
So you could get chord changes from one place, bring it over to another place, and it'll compose a melody to go over it.
Yeah, I mean, you can even do that in ChatGPT for that matter. You can give it some chord changes and say, can you give this a jazz feel? And it will now come up with some jazz chords.
Oh, interesting. Okay, cool. So it'll give you chord substitutions and make them cooler.
Yeah.
Make them a little bit more metropolitan.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, what about some of the ways, maybe this is really the same question, but another question was just, how can we use it to give us new ideas and fresh inspiration when we're creatively stuck? So let's say we've already gotten ourselves, it's a common experience to write a song, and it's like you got the first verse and the first chorus. Maybe you're stuck getting into that second verse, and maybe you don't know how to get a bridge going, and then you need to arrange the whole song and really sort of like put the polished finish on it as far as arrangement. Are these just revisiting the same tools, or are there some other things that we should know about?
Yeah, it's pretty much the same tools, but you get more specific. You'd say, this is what I have now. Can you write me a bridge? Or, if it's lyrics, this is what I have. Can you write me a second verse? Something like that.
Yeah.
The more specific you are, just like you would be with your writing partner, and saying, I need a line here. This third line on the third verse doesn't work for me. And you do the same thing.
Okay. So let's say we've got our song, we've got our outline, we've got our composition. Let's move on to production. What are some of the things that will help us produce a version of this song?
Well, from the standpoint of arrangement, it's not good at arrangement. From if you were to say, this is what I have so far, make this work. No, it's not good at that at all. At least yet. What it can do is, again, one of these like AIVA, I keep on coming back to that. It's AIVA .ai, I think. And that's a particularly good one for coming up with new ideas. And it does come up with some really good arrangements. I should say, one of these things that's very important that you should know, many of these tools, the music tools, lean towards electronic music.
Right.
And there's two reasons. One is programmers are young and that's what they're into. The second one is a lot of the sounds are much easier to make in electronic music.
Because they're already generated.
Yeah. Although there are many generators as well there's a couple in particular for drums, drum sounds. Come up with a new kick sound for me. Although it's electronic, it will come up with a new kick sound. Personally, I think that's kind of crazy because, just get a new sample, if you're going to.
Right.
Tons of samples.
So what about the older generation like myself who appreciates the electronic stuff, but really still wants guitars and real drums and bass? Are you seeing ways that we can use AI to sort of generate it? I mean, generating a drum kit, that's kind of a cool feature that on some level has been around through Drummer Track and Logic, but maybe it's really advancing with AI.
Oh, I got a good one for you. It's
sorry, all drummer friends. I like to joke that AI is Drum Machine 2.0, so don't be fearful. Just use it as a cool new sound.
I'm just going to double check this here, but there are some very good accompaniment tools, of which drum accompaniment is a big deal. Easy Drummer 3 has something called Bandmate. And with Bandmate, it will come up with a drum track for you. So
based on some input, based on sort of understanding where
your song, you put your song in, and it will generate a drum track. And it's pretty good, ones I've heard. Now, obviously, it's coming from a good sample library to begin with, so it's going to sound good, but it sounds like it's a real drummer playing. So this is another thing that's happening. AI accompaniment tools. There's quite a few of them.
I think that sounds pretty exciting too, because I think that it's very common for us to feel like we wish we had a band, you know?
Well, especially for someone that's at home that's not good at programming drums. Yeah. You know, this is appropriate for that. I'm not saying that, you know, get rid of all drummers, because it's still the best. There's also, I'm looking for it right here.
And which one was that first, the drummer?
Easy Drummer 3.
Easy Drummer 3.
And the feature's called Bandmate. There's also one, I think it's Musico.
By the way, I'm running out of space on my paper with my pencil. Very non-AI of me, but there's so much cool stuff to write down as you talk about this.
There's actually an AI that will accompany you if you're out playing. So if you're doing a solo act, it will accompany you as if it's a real player or a real bunch of players.
Wow.
It's an iPhone app.
I do remember a long time ago, I already forgot what it was, but there was an iPhone app that would let you record, you know, your sketch of your guitar. You could strum into it, and then it would just like compose a little kick snare, very simple rudimentary kick snare drum beat to go along with it, maybe even a bass track. And it was fun to play around with for a minute, just because it was like, oh, that's kind of cool. Yeah. But so that with these tools, you know, you can lean on Easy Drummer, for example, to come up with a drum track. And then I'm guessing you could go in there and kind of scoot things around a little bit or swap out some ideas here and there if you want to.
Sure.
And then you could just bring those back into your own DAW. You know, it's a plugin. It's already in your DAW probably. With the AI VA, Ava or whatever it's called, that one seems to let you generate music, and then it looks like it has its own DAW that you can sort of break out the individual tracks into if you want to rearrange things too, Rockstars. So yes, that could be fun.
But wait, I'm going to give you the secret to all these though.
Yeah, please do.
Okay, so any of these music generators that they're technically text to music generators, any of them will give you a sound file. You probably don't want that. You want the MIDI file. Download the MIDI file and then put that, upload into your DAW. Then you can change out the virtual instruments on it. You can, make any changes that you need. It's just, a whole lot easier. So it's better in terms of composition. Yeah. But there's also one other advantage to that. Remember before I said there are 3 different copyrights for every song. One is the sound recording. Of course, that's what we listen to. One is the publishing, and one is the synchronization rights. So we're not going to talk about sync now because it's not going to picture. But the publishing is important. That is never mentioned on any of these. Publish. And what they'll say to you, and this is the reason why I say download the MIDI file, not the audio file. Many of these sites will say, or platforms will say, you know what? Unless you pay us X amount of dollars, you won't own the copyright. Or they'll make it even worse. They'll say, you want to pay us $5 a month? Yeah, no problem. You can download it, but you can't post it to YouTube or Spotify. So they kind of hold you hostage there. And the way around that is to say, let me just download the MIDI file. And then that's never a question.
Make it yourself, yeah.
But they never talk about the publishing because you own it.
Right. There's nothing to talk about because you already own it.
It's an unsaid license, essentially.
And that harkens back to what you said in the beginning, which is AI with the element of human in it, which is us, gives us the ability to consider it our protected creation.
Yes.
Interesting. And again, I don't remember if you said that has been established or if that is the working definition in this new evolving space.
It's been ruled, and this happened really 4 or 5 years ago. I don't know if you ever saw the picture of Naruto, which is the monkey that took a selfie of himself.
No, I didn't.
It's a fantastic.
Sorry, I don't live near Silicon Valley, so I don't always see those as quickly as you guys did.
This was done in Indonesia. It's an
okay, all right.
Indonesian macaque, I think, that got this camera, and he smiles at it. And
wow.
It's as if a professional photographer took this. I mean, it is so good. So this, people started to say, use this. And then the pushback was, well, Naruto owns, the monkey owns this copyright. You don't own it. Well, the copyright board then came back and said, no. You have to be a human in order to own the copyright, which comes down to AI is not a human, so it can't own the copyright.
Wow. Well, lucky us.
Yeah, right.
We're probably the only ones who ever sat around thinking about copyright anyway, so that's probably a good thing. Once again, we invented the word. All right, so let's move on to, we've gotten into composition and production. So production would be accompaniment tools. It would be sounds, wise advice to download the MIDI file, because then we can import it. And we already own that Native Instruments Mega Complete bundle. So might as well put all those amazing sounds to use in our DAW. Plus, we're here because we like using stuff like a DAW. That's why we're recording Studio Rockstars.
There's a couple other things in this category. Yeah. There's also voice cloners and virtual vocalists.
Oh, that's cool. Let's hear about that. And we hear about, making the imitation Drake, but if it's all right with you, let's move on from that and let's get more personal with this. Yeah.
A virtual vocalist, you could sing something yourself, and let's say you're a marginal singer or not good at all, you can sing it and then have the virtual vocalist sing it and it'll be perfect. And of course, it'll be in a voice that sounds really good.
I have a client who came to me wanting to do that very thing. He wanted to just have the idea, but have a different singer come in and sing it. And this sounds like the perfect tool for that.
Yeah. There's numerous places you can go for this. Wait, I'm going to get you a couple.
We need AI to go ding 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 ding.
Yeah.
Ding, 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 ding. Oh wait, is that copyrighted?
Yeah. Solaris is the one I'm thinking of. There we go. Solaris.
Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah, and that's the one that it's ethical AI because they've licensed these voices.
Yeah.
Now, do it yourself. If you decide you want to, license your voice, you can do that too. So, this is all possible.
Do you ever feel like the time that you've spent watching YouTube videos, trying out mix tricks, and tweaking version after version of your mixes has gotten you nowhere? Have you been looking for a simple, straightforward, step-by-step process for creating a pro mix that won't take you years to learn? What if you could have a Grammy-winning mix engineer who understood all your mixing struggles and could coach you through them? If you struggle with any of these questions, then the Ultimate Mixing Masterclass is just for you. Now you can discover the proven step-by-step mix system from Grammy-winning mixer Craig Alvin for consistently creating a pro-quality mix from your home studio that will sound amazing everywhere. Listen to this quote from one of our students, David, quote, "Absolutely the most informative and helpful block of information and mentoring on the mix process that I've ever been a part of. That was like sitting behind a mix engineer for years, watching and picking up tips along the way, but condensed into a 6 to 7 hour session," close quote. Look, I'm so confident that this will take your mixes to the next level that if you can't get a killer mix within 30 days, I'll give you a full refund, no questions asked. So if you're ready to take your mixes to Grammy-winning quality, then go to ultimatemixingmasterclass.com and start now by checking out the free preview of the ultimate snare mixing trick. And I'll see you at the front row table of the Grammys. Cheers. Now, what if you don't even want to license it? What if you just want to upload your voice as an example and have it spit back your own voice with some lyrics that you typed in, singing, 8-part harmony?
Yeah, Holly Herndon did that. Holly Herndon's relatively, I don't know if I'd call her a famous singer, but she's had some success. She's also has her PhD in AI from Stanford, so she's really smart. And she's at the forefront of this. She came up with something called Holly Plus a few years ago, that I think in 2021, where she cloned her voice, and you could use her voice on many different songs. And people have done this. They've taken, I think the one that really went viral on YouTube was there's a Dolly Parton song that somebody took and used her voice, Jolene.
Right. And
it was fantastic. It was just, perfect, but it's Holly singing.
That's great.
There's and she keeps on doing these things. Holly, 12 different Hollies with different, voices, background voices. Speaking of which, there's yet another one I just thought of. There's a new feature in Neutron. It's called Backer, Backer.
Mm-hmm.
And Backer will allow you to put background vocals. And you can put up to 6 on your vocal.
That's
6
awesome.
vocalists, and they're all, different. So it really does sound like a choir.
Yeah, I think Nectar has some cool harmonizing features too, also from Isotope Rockstars.
Yeah.
And I'll take a moment and plug it. If you are interested in that stuff, use the coupon ROCK10 to get 10% off on any of the Isotope plugins. So the other thing you mentioned too, and speaking of Isotope, we have a great tool called Rebalance, which is getting a little bit into mixing and mastering.
Yeah.
But if you rewind a little bit, there are a number of tools out there that are really just trying to fully extract a sound from, and Rebalance can do a pretty good job of that. I mean, you can, Michael Brower was on here talking about how he had used it to extract instruments, and just like do it like repeatedly, like you said, hit the regenerate button. Same thing with the Isotope tools. Sometimes they even recommend that you do the move with RX and things like that. Do it more than once, regenerate your thing, and it'll get better and better until it gets, until you go too far. But you can extract instruments from stuff and use those in your productions. I'm trying to think of examples with the voice. I guess you could extract somebody else's voice and maybe then.
There's a lot of separation tools that will do that. There's one called Rebalance. I think it's by Ascentize. It's the only one that does it in real time, where it's a plug-in on your DAW, and you have a stereo track, and it will break out. And they always break it out into 5 stems. For some reason, it's kind of a standard. So it's drums, it's bass, it's a vocal, it's keyboards, and other is the way they break it out in stereo. But nonetheless, you can rebalance something as you go along, which is really nice. But there's tons of separation tools that will separate a particular track out.
Yeah, and again, also rebalance in isotope ozone. That one is, I used that recently mastering our own records, where we all know what it's like to mix until you're just like, this has got to, like, I can't improve on this mix anymore. Like if I keep working on it, it's going to get worse. But yet still I could find myself at the mastering stage going, God, the vocals were just a little low on this one, or they were a little higher. This one needs a little more bass. And it was really cool to use ozone rebalance to just boost the vocals a little more at the, as part of the chain in the mastering stage. And it's really, really remarkable. And in those cases, the intention wasn't to totally isolate a sound. It was just to boost it by a couple of dB.
Yeah.
Really effective that way. All right, so let's move forward. I know we're coming up near running out of time with you, but I want to talk a little bit about some of the, there's the promo ideas, but video too. Let's talk about video and lyric stuff. We'll leave the part that we always like to avoid for last, which is promotion and marketing. Let's talk about the fun stuff, which is creating our video and our lyric video. What do we want to know about some of the tools and how they can help us there?
Oh, there's a lot of real good ones. Rotor Videos is one of my favorite. Rotor, ROTOR.
I know Midjourney is one that gets mentioned sometimes.
Well, not for video, for graphics.
Okay.
There's three big graphics platforms. There's Midjourney, there's Stable Diffusion, and there's DALL-E. And Midjourney's kind of the toughest one to use from the standpoint that it only operates from a Discord channel. So that's kind of weird to do that. But the other ones are available, and not only are they available, they're available on multiple platforms. So the AI, the interface, can be a little more user friendly.
Yeah.
So that makes it, a lot easier. DALL-E is now, since it's the same people that have made ChatGPT, DALL-E is now built into ChatGPT. So right from there, you can generate a graphic if you want now. And of course,
okay, cool.
That's if you're paying for it. So you're paying the $20 a month, you can do that.
Yeah. So Rockstars, I encourage you to go try the free stuff to dabble around in this. But, as with anything we do, it's like, we all started out with the 2 gig limit on Dropbox or whatever it was. And then eventually you're like, all right, I got to use this all the time. So no brainer to subscribe to it if you can. So the image stuff is really fun, and we do need those as creators because we need posters, we need thumbnails, we need album covers, and it can be a lot of fun to have those available. I mean, I'll just use an example. So I'm a big fan of Samply.app, which is a cloud hosting for our audio where we can create, I've got all the mixes of the record I'm working on in a little project. And the project, of course, has a graphic that you can upload. So you've got a little thumbnail for it. And it's really fun to go generate, cool, fun thumbnails like that seem relevant to the title of the project or whatever. Because, maybe you don't have an artist yet to make your actual album cover. So that's pretty cool stuff. Now, what about the video stuff? What you mentioned Rotor Video. Have you seen examples of really cleverly done video creation for music videos or lyric videos?
Well, let me mention a couple other ones. Caliber is another one with a K, Kaliber. That's a real good one. Another one is Neural Frames. And Neural Frames is really good. It's not by a company; it's by a guy.
Right on.
Together, and it's great. It's a nice platform.
Like getting Massey plugins back in the day for Pro Tools.
Yeah. Video Bolt is another one. That one's actually really good for lyric videos. Video Bolt, Bolt. And there's a special lyric. Rotor Video has this too, where there's a special lyric section that will build it up for you. Now, to make a video, it's fairly easy, but there are 2 different types. There are template types where you pick a template, and there are theme types where you pick a theme. And they seem like the same thing, but they're not. With a theme, you actually have a lot more control of what you can do. And in many cases, what you'll do is you'll go in and you'll say, this is what I want it to look generally like, with, the color and the feel. And there'll be a whole list of things that you can select. But then many of them will say, go in and pick 6 to 10 clips. So you pick these clips and they're B-roll, and then they drop them in. So it's not just graphics oriented the whole time. And it's funny, I think I was on a cruise somewhere, and there's not many channels on a cruise ship, television channels, but there's always a music video channel. So I flipped this music video channel on, and the music video came up, and it was so blatantly AI generated. All it was a blob that morphed into another blob, into another blob, into another blob for 3 minutes.
Sounds like a description of our discography.
And obviously that's not what you want. One of the things that I mentioned in the book is editing. And you need good editing techniques. And there used to be the rule of 9, where you couldn't have anything that was on the screen for more than 9 seconds. You had to change it. And now that's down to 3 or 4, where you want to keep on changing to keep the interest level up. I mean, we do this in music production, where whenever there's a hole, it gets filled with something. And as we go on in the song, there are more things that pop in, and it's to subliminally keep us listening. Well, it's the same thing with picture, where you have to keep on doing that, and it's done by edit.
Yeah. Especially in the social media world. I mean, of course, then it reminds me of the what was the beer commercial where it was just a still shot of the beach and there was nothing going on, because that was their response to that.
Corona, and I just saw it yesterday, because they have one for Christmas that's always on, and that's what it is. Yeah.
This podcast is proud to present Recording Studio Rockstars Academy. Are you ready to take your recording, mixing, and mastering to the next level and make your best record ever? Then visit the Academy to find the course that's right for you. Want to record killer drums in your home studio? Then check out Rockstars of Drums to learn how to record, edit, and mix pro-sounding drums with a professional Nashville session drummer in a Grammy-winning studio. Or if you're ready to start mastering your own records at home, then check out Rockstars of Mastering, where I walk you through exactly how I master my own records using nothing but plugins. Plus, I take you into a world-class mastering studio, Sterling Sound, to meet with Ryan Smith and hear how he professionally mastered my record, Skadoosh, for release to streaming platforms. That's the music you hear on this podcast, Rockstars. And if mixing is your focus, then check out my free mixing course, Mix Master Bundle, where I show you how to mix using stock and free plugins and Pro Tools. Plus, you get a look at how I recorded everything in my studio and multi-track downloads for you to practice mixing and even upload to your website if you want. Are you ready to make your best record ever? Then go to recordingstudiorockstars.com/academy to get started now. Okay, cool. So, and then of course, another one that I found very useful when it comes to generating text captions for videos, which I guess would work for music videos as well, as CapCut is a really good one. I use that when I'd go out to NAMM, for example, to make little YouTube shorts. It's just sort of easy to make videos on your iPhone. And it does have a thing in there where you can say detect beats in the music. Yeah. So it shows you where to make cuts if you want them to be on the beat.
Well, in this case, most of the AI video generators are really good at doing that. So you don't have to worry about that so much. It's especially good. This is one of the reasons, though, that I always felt that, and I've had a lot of experience with editors, video editors, over the years, and before I became one myself. And I have to say that musicians are always better at editing. And the reason why is they can feel the pulse.
Yeah.
of whatever it is that's going on. They can feel it, but especially on a music video, they know to cut on the beat.
Yeah.
They know when there's a complete phrase that they can cut on. And it's not always like that with somebody that doesn't have that experience.
Yeah. And
But
just
AI
in, even YouTube videos, or I think we do pick up on a rhythm within the pacing of things.
Yeah.
And they say, like, in comedy, that's the hardest part. That's the most valuable thing, is the editing, right?
One of the things that you should know, though, you mentioned social media. Almost all of these AI video generators will also allow you to generate in sizes that are appropriate for social media, and it'll,
right,
depending on the platform, it'll output at that.
All right. Well, I have, I could probably think of 1,000 more questions to keep talking about this, but in the interest of time, Bobby, what have I not asked you about that we should close out with, as far as really important stuff to remember about this, or anything you want to say?
There was something before that I thought, I got to put this in, and we got away from it. I don't remember. Oh, yeah, I remember what it is. Okay. AI mastering is very good.
Yeah.
Whether you use a plugin like Ozone, or you use any of the online mastering tools, that could be Lander, it could be eMastered, Cloud Bounce, any of those. They all work the same way. You tell them that you want to master, you tell them the style, and do you want it to be gently mastered, or do you want it to be smashed? For the most part, you don't say it like that, but that's what it is. But the real secret to mastering is a reference track.
Mm-hmm.
So what you're going to do is you're going to find a really good reference track that you like, and it could come off of Spotify. It doesn't matter, or any place for that matter. You feed it into the mastering platform, and then it knows, I have to make it sound like this. Now, when you feed it in, it doesn't remember it. It just takes a picture of the frequency response, and also of the compression. So then it makes your track sound similar to that, and it will sound so much better than just having it go on its own. Yeah, so that's a real secret.
Isotope Audio Lens, I think, is an example of something like that, a tool like that does it.
Well, actually, it's Audio Assistant, and Audio Assistant will allow you to put in a reference track. What Audio Lens is kind of brilliant, because that will allow you to put in 12 tracks. So, and make it easy to go between them. So you don't have to keep on loading them in. You just call up Audio Lens, and there you go. But that's a secret. Now, what I've done in the past, I've taken a track that I've had mastered. I've uploaded the raw mix, uploaded the master reference track, and then compared them, and then compared it to the mastered one that I had. The mastered one still beats it, but not by much.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up too, because I think that was one of the realizations for me as I was mastering in Ozone using the new mastering assistant and really getting to understand how it works, is I realized I was like, it's helpfully choosing a genre as a target for the music that I'm uploading. But then when I think about it, I'm like, well, how does it know what I like? So then I think that a next level is going to be our ability to create our own targets and our own genres that appeal to us. And then also to remember, in the same way that we do in the studio, that, like, not everything's an apple or an orange. I mean, every song and record is different, but within a record itself, if we're mastering our own album, we might decide that we really nailed it on one of the songs on the album. And I think we could use that as our reference for the other songs on the album. And that might be a much closer target in some ways.
Sure. Lots of ways to do it.
Yeah. Well, Bobby, so let me ask you this closing question before we go on to that. As I've asked you many times before, we'll ask it again, man. We're going to take the Wayback Studio machine, and you go back and find yourself young Bobby, or you just find yourself before you got into all this AI discovery, and you say, look, here's the single most important thing you need to know to be a rock star of the recording studio yourself. Translation: what advice would you like to go back and give yourself if you could?
Well, it's advice that I actually took, but I would give to anybody else, and it's persistence. Because everybody I know that stayed in the game eventually made a good living out of it. And the people that didn't, obviously they're working, doing something else and lamenting it. A lot of my students are people that have left the music business and are now coming back later in life saying, I wish I would have finished what I started. So persistence is one of the big things. If I had to give myself advice, it would be instrumentally, it would have been to practice more, to work harder, to shed more.
Yeah. I'm giving myself that advice all the time. Well, Bobby, thank you again for joining us, man. It's always a pleasure to hang with you. Let the rock stars know, where can they go pick up the Musician's AI Handbook, and where you want them to check out the rest of your work.
If you go to bobbyowsinski.com, you'll find links there for everything, to my courses, to my books. And go to bobbyowsinski.com and look at the menu for books and get it from there. Okay,
groovy. And then Rockstars, we do have a discography also of Bobby's records that he's created and mixed in surround, and all kinds of great stuff in the show notes. So you can scroll down there and there will be a link directly to Bobby's website. So Bobby, I'll see you in Botland. Actually, I'll probably see you out at NAMM, although this will come out after that. And it's always a pleasure to hang with you. You're a great teacher, and we really, really appreciate you joining us on the podcast.
Thanks for having me, Lidge.
All right. Thanks for listening, Rockstars. Cheers, man. Thanks so much for listening to Recording Studio Rockstars. If you enjoyed the show and want to help make it better, then please share this episode with your friends on social media and leave a rating and review on iTunes to help the podcast reach more rock stars like yourself. You can click directly over to iTunes or go to rsrockstars.com/review for an easy explanation. And remember to hit the subscribe button to keep up with weekly episodes. And if you're ready to make your best record ever now, then head over to Recording Studio Rockstars Academy, where you can start with my free course at mixmasterbundle.com. Thanks so much for listening, and thanks for being a rock star. I'm Lid Shaw, and this is Recording Studio Rockstars. Now, go make great music. Recording Studio Rockstars would like to give a big thank you to our awesome sponsors who help make this episode possible. Lewitt, Grace Design, Atom Audio, Native Instruments, and Isotope. And remember, at isotope.com and nativeinstruments.com, use the coupon code ROCK10 for 10% off any plug-in purchase. If you enjoyed Recording Studio Rockstars, please check out our sponsors using the links in our show notes, because it's a great way to help support the show. These are all things I highly recommend for your studio. They're going to help you make your best record ever. I would also like to thank our fantastic team here at Recording Studio Rockstars, Vlad Weselchenko, Braden Stremming, and Liz Hulitskaya. Thanks so much for listening, Rockstars, and we'll see you in the next episode. Cheers.